What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Wager Alarm live stream. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me, of course, Craig Mish. Craig, what's going on, brother? We're inching closer and closer. We got
What's going on, everybody?
Welcome into a lot of college football to talk about this week. Got Thursday games, Friday games, and then just a huge whopping slate on Saturday, man. Are you ready?
I am. What a great weekend it was for college this past weekend. A couple of games. Of course, the Gators won in an ugly game.
Doesn't matter. They didn't cover.
They did not cover. That was sad. But Hawaii did win outright. So, all things considered, if you bet both games, you split. So not bad there. I clearly my heart was with the Gators and still is. I'm happy they ended up pulling it out. But, yeah, they did not look good in that game. And Hawaii actually looked great. And Kevin Sumlin, Arizona, did not look good at all. So, we'll kind of see what happens with Arizona as they go. The good news for those four teams, they don't have to play this week. So they get a couple of weeks off, but that's kind of the treacherous thing in playing in that first week. You don't know what's going to happen. Even Hawaii's quarterback ended up throwing a number of interceptions in that game too. So, of course, that's the college, and we'll take a look at some games for Thursday, some early looks for Friday. The Super Contest for the NFL starts next week. The Golden Nugget Contest that you or I in also starts next week. So we're a little bit ahead of the game here, but I don't think it's too early to start taking a look at the games for this weekend. We have some line changes. Some lines moving up and down in college. There are games, by the way, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then there's one game Sunday night, Oklahoma and Houston. But I thought, Howard, before we get to that, we should probably touch on what everybody has been talking about in the sports world, which is, of course, Andrew Luck deciding to retire. And if you watch our Wager Alarm AFC win totals, I think both liked the over of 10.5 on the Indianapolis Colts. And fortunately for us, we didn't act on that, because had we probably would have lost. That total is down 6.5, 7 in some spots. I expect this to move around a little bit over the next week or so, but just clearly taking massive wins away from the Colts. So I don't know how you see it now, but most spots 6.5, 7 wins is the projection for the Colts. So
you know what? If I can get 6.5, I'd actually take the over on that, depending on what the money line is. I kind of feel like people are doing a little bit of overreacting here as far as Jacoby Brissett. The difference between now and 2017 was that Chuck Pagano never changed the game plan. It was always, okay, we're just going to do this with Jacoby Brissett right now because we're getting Luck back next week. We're getting Luck back in 2 weeks. He never turned around and shifted the game plan to fit Jacoby Brissett's style, which is just definitely a more mobile quarterback cut in the mold of like a Dak Prescott, as opposed to Andrew Luck, who's a much more of a pocket passer. Nowadays, you're talking about it's Frank Reich, who understands quarterbacks better than most people do, adjusting that game plan and shifting things around. I think we'll see more RPOs, which will kind of keep the backfield in motion there. I think people are overreacting a little bit. I don't love this division. I don't love the AFC overall. And you want to knock it down to 6.5. I could see legitimately the Colts turning out a 7-9 performance, possibly even an 8-8. I don't love it to death, but for the same token, I think I'll get a better money line on an over there than I will on an under.
Yeah, I think that it will be interesting because as we talk about sometimes with games, and very rarely we do with totals. And I think this is factored in a lot of the times that I've said it, and it's come true, not in terms of winning a game one way or the other, but the reaction is, Howard, I think after week 2 we're going to know if the Colts are going to go over that total. I think you're going to know right away. I don't think this is the kind of thing where they start off 0-2 and then rally for 8 more wins the rest of the season. That was a pretty big punch in the face right there. So we're going to have to see how they react. And certainly, I think that, let's say in the first 3 games, if they were to start 2-1, I'd feel great about it. If it's 0-3, it's over. 1-1, you feel like there's a chance for an 8-8 season. I just don't see any value at this point. And I think you're right. The coaching is definitely better this time around. Mm-hmm. The running game is definitely better this time around. The receiver's probably about the same. The defense is a little bit better. One of the best defensive players in the NFL they have on the defensive side. So
offensive line is tight also.
I still don't see them as more than like a 7 or 8 win team.
No,
I know what the line is, but that to me, there's not a lot of value there for that. So for me, it would be a pass. And if it was losing him Luck to an injury, I probably would still want to go over on that. But just what these guys must be thinking and their mentality going into the first and second game. And what happens if they go down 7-0 or down 10-0? I mean, how would the body feel at that point? Oh no, this is going to be a long year. Look, I don't know. Maybe it'll be the opposite. Maybe they'll rally behind Jacoby Brissett.
They had to have known though ahead of time. We already know that the Colts brass knew about it a week ahead of time, and they were actually just kind of hoping that Luck wasn't, he was going to like rethink it and come back in a few days and be like, no, all right, let's just throw me on IR. I'll sit out this season. They never really gave him that kind of an opportunity, but they've known about it now for a couple for. No,
I don't agree with that at all. I know what the story said today. No, I know what the story said today, Howard. There's no way that you could tell me that 75 NFL players, that one person wouldn't leak that to somebody else. So, I mean, just respectfully speaking, there's just no way. I think that I've covered the NFL, covered Major League Baseball. These guys talk like crazy. One non-roster guy who's got no shot of making the team tells his buddy, it goes on Instagram in an hour. Hey,
I'm not saying the whole team knew. I'm saying Reich knew, Luck knew, Ballard knew.
Maybe Doyle, knew. maybe the tight end he was throwing to on the field knew. Maybe T.Y. Hilton even knew too. I could see those things. But in terms of
he wasn't practicing with anybody. He was hurt.
Oh no! But the last night he was on the field throwing very vigorously. They said, like as if he was going to play in the game. That last night he was there. And the reason why he was apparently doing it because he knew that was the last time he was ever going to throw on the field. But he did. In warm-ups, he was like warming up like he was going to play in the game. And then he said something to the tight end. There's like this whole report about it. Either way, it has nothing to do with wagering. The point is, the point is that I just want to see what the team's mentality is. I think it's a dangerous bet one way or the other. And for me, it's just when I don't have a good feel for it. The thing that this does affect, by the way, is I still don't like the Texans. And I still feel they'll go under, but obviously I don't feel nearly as good about that now, knowing that those two games against the Colts are more winnable than they were a week ago. So I think that has to affect all the totals. And those haven't really shifted, but some of the money lines have shifted a little bit. But for me, it definitely changes the AFC South. Are they South? Is that the division? Yeah, it definitely changes the AFC South for me, but not significant enough. Still, I like Buffalo on the over, as we talked about. That doesn't change for me. I still like under on Houston a little bit. I don't think they'll be a really good team, but we've gone into it, and those people who want to go back, we have it archived. It's posted on demand right now on YouTube and also at wageralarm.com for our AFC live stream. Just understand that we did that before Andrew Luck decided to retire.
Yeah, really? Was it before? Maybe we didn't bring it up. All right.
It was.
So yeah, we just ignored it completely. All right, let's get to some college stuff here.
All right.
Pretty big slate. It's like 15 games on Thursday here.
Yeah,
one of the games that we kind of talked about though last week that we were leaning towards was Utah at BYU, and you made some really great points there as far as the fact that these guys all know each other, that these guys all grew up playing side by side and against each other throughout the time of these inter-Utah type games here. We've got Zach Moss, who's you labeled as a dark horse Heisman candidate here if you're going to actually look at a running back. What's the line on this one now?
It's moved up a little bit. Utah's now -5.5 at BYU. There are some people that really like the underdog in this matchup too, given the fact that, again, it is a rivalry. And as we talked about on last week's live stream, in case you missed it, the last 8 games that these two teams have played, it's come down to the final possession of the game. So at the very least, some people are kind of leaning toward BYU. And the other thing, Howard, that you got to factor in, again, depending on where you're playing, if you're playing online, you get to that 5.5, you're creeping towards 6 at that point. And you could buy that half point. You're getting 6 points at home in a big rivalry game. And to me, it does shift a little bit. Utah's defense is obviously among the best in the country, but certainly when we do this live stream on Friday night, we'll have a chance to take a look at it. But certainly right now, it looks like the money's in on Utah. Speaking of rivalry games, by the way, and kids that know each other, always opening up the season, or at least the last few years, on Friday night, Colorado State is going to play Colorado. So this is kind of a similar situation, with the exception of there are some folks that think that Colorado State is the worst team in all of college football this year. So now Colorado's not that good either. But CSU ranked last in almost every statistical category in the country last year. Rushing defense. They lost another player to academic eligibility this week. Their head coach, Mike Bobo, was ill during their fall practice, so he missed a lot of that time. most people, even their win total, I think, is like 3 or 3.5. Some people feel they're only going to win 2 games this year. The only problem is that the Buffaloes aren't really that good either. They're not projected to be great, so we'll know very early on just how bad Colorado State is. Right now, Howard, the line is Colorado minus 13 or 13.5.
Well, I think if Colorado State was that bad, then wouldn't it be at least a 2-touchdown thing?
I think it's more of an indictment on Colorado and the fact that, again, it's a rivalry game. Everyone's familiar with each other. They play each other a lot.
So where would you lean, though? Would you lean getting the points or giving the points?
I would lean giving the points here because if CSU is that genuinely that bad, there's no way that I could side with the underdog. Now, again, I believe Colorado's season win total is only about 5.5, which doesn't make them that much better than CSU, but I would probably lean toward the favorite. I will say this, after watching those first 2 games in college last week, I think in some environments you got to be really careful. It is hot all around the country, and Miami and the University of Florida were just falling over themselves in the fourth quarter. They had to come out. I don't think that'll be the situation at altitude, but you certainly don't know. So probably just a lean, but I think at least an interesting game for Friday to see those 2 teams playing.
What if the line moved up to 14.5? Would you still be
14.5 would be done, but 14 would be the same.
Okay. Beautiful. All right, well, let's talk about some of the games on Saturday that we're looking at, some lines that we're looking at moving. Starting off with, how about Duke at Alabama? Duke was one of my teams that I actually liked their over. I think it was like 6.5 was the over, and I liked them. In this one, this was actually obviously a game that I was automatically conceding.
Yeah,
them going up against Alabama, and Bama now a 5-touchdown favorite in this one here.
Yeah. The line is actually looking like it's moving down a little bit. I saw some 34s earlier today. I saw 33.5. But Nick Saban's 10-1 against the spread opening night in his last 11 seasons. You want me to say that again? 10-1 against the spread the last 11 years opening night. So we don't know what kind of Duke team we're gonna get, but this is I don't think this is the time to roll with the dog here. I just don't. It's probably a pass for me. Anytime I'm looking at a spread that's in the 30s, I think you really got to look at a team that's like severely mismatched. For example, this week, Florida Atlantic plays against Ohio State. So that's a little bit of a different scenario for me because FAU is not even in the same stratosphere as Ohio State. Duke is a ACC team, and so they're not supposed to lose by 5 touchdowns.
ACC team which prides themselves on defense. Their offense, on the other hand, that's a different story.
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to score 2 touchdowns in this game. So
yeah, that's kind of where.
But again, we'll have our picks Friday. But at the very least, I'm just running it down here as to what we're seeing. Saturday night, Auburn is now up to 3.5 against Oregon. The big news from Auburn this week is Bo Nix is getting the start. He's the first college quarterback that is a freshman to start at Auburn since before Lenny Melnick was born. 1946. 1946. Wow. I mean, that's crazy. Like to think of Cam Newton and all the good quarterbacks they had in Auburn. First quarterback that it's a freshman. He's going to make his first start against the Ducks. The SEC, by the way, also 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 matchups against the Pac-12 also. So there would be a little bit of a lean toward Auburn in this one. I don't know if I'll make a pick on Oregon, but I would lean toward taking the 3.5 points. I don't know if Oregon can win this game, but I have a lot of confidence in that quarterback and that offensive line, and I just don't think Auburn blows them out. I think it's a close game. I think it could be a 3-point game, so surprised it went to 3.5 here a little bit. I would be inclined to buy 0.5 point and get it even to 4.
Oh, nice. Okay. Beautiful. Let's look at some of the other early leans we're looking at here. Toledo at Kentucky. It's Kentucky minus 12. What a surprise that program was last year. I mean, that really kind of came from out of nowhere.
It helped us a lot.
Oh, we rode that. I mean, I rode that like a
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Benny Snell, Kentucky, 1,700 yards. You had a great year. Right. Yeah. So Kentucky, they're down a ton of starters. I don't think they deserve to be 2 touchdown favorites in this game. Toledo won the MAC last year. They won their division. So this was a stat I couldn't believe. And this is a little bit of a trend, and it just kind of shows you. I think Kentucky's living a little bit. Their spread's living a little bit off last year. The Wildcats have not covered 10 straight games as a favorite. That's a lot. So I think this could be one of the games that I may go with this week. I may take Toledo in this matchup. Maybe Kentucky wins, but wins by a little. I could see Toledo going to Kentucky and winning. This is not the same team as it was last year. I understand it's the SEC versus the MAC, but we saw the other night one of the best teams in the SEC against Miami, who's probably not one of the best teams in the ACC, and Miami took them right down to the end. So I think Toledo could be a play here for me, getting the points. I would love to see this go to 14. I don't know that it will, though.
All right, right on. That's I love that. I do. All right, another game you're talking about here. Louisiana Tech at Texas.
Yeah, I'm a little scared here on this one.
Well, it's 19.5 point spread.
I liked it at 19.5, and now it's 20.5. So should I like it? But should I like it more that now I'm getting more points? So the money is all coming in toward Texas. Louisiana Tech has had a couple of really good seasons in a row behind Skip Holtz, and this is Lou Holtz's son. 16-6 against the spread as a road dog coach, so that's really good. Louisiana Tech last year 6-1 as a road dog, so I'm leaning toward taking the points here. Obviously, getting 21 is better than 20.5. I'll wait till the end of the week to make my final call on this one because if this is going to keep climbing, I may as well wait and just get my points. But I do like two underdogs on Saturday: Toledo, Louisiana Tech so far.
Toledo and Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, can't take all favorites. It's no fun.
What are you talking about? The favorite always wins, Craig. All right, so we got a couple of leans here early on. We got some interesting stuff. Well, I mean, do you want to make a call here at all on Utah BYU? Or you're going to take BYU?
No, I'm gonna wait till Friday to make the final call on these. If there's a line that I would lock in,
I'd love to make the final call on the Utah BYU game on Friday as well. But they're playing Thursday.
Oh, it's Thursday. That's right. I mean, it won't be a bet for me.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't I say I would take the under in that game if I'm not mistaken?
I do believe you said taking the under. You love Utah's defense there.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Let me double check.
So you take the under on that one. All right, beautiful.
Yeah, but not for an official pick. I'm going to pass on all those till Friday. But let me give let me take a look at the total.
I'm not holding you to nothing here, man. I'm not holding you to nothing.
Wednesday, Thursday. Okay,
just trying to recap.
Wow, what a great live stream. Don't even know the total. Okay, here we go. 47.5 under. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You take the under on that. 47.
That would be my lean for Thursday night. If I was going to do one thing, that's what it would be.
Yep. All right. And how about our lean for Friday night? Because it's actually
Friday night. It would be Colorado, and then as of right now, Saturday, I would take. I don't know that it'll be Oregon. That's a public game. Two big teams.
We'll wait till Friday for Saturday.
But Toledo and Louisiana Tech are two dogs that I think will be barking this weekend. I think there's a chance of that. I would say that one of them even may have a chance to win outright.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like that. I like the Toledo going into Kentucky and winning that one.
Opening week, anything can happen. Opening week. This isn't week 7. Anything can happen.
All right. Well,
except for Duke beating Alabama and Georgia Tech beating Clemson. By the way, that line's going up to 40. Howard, Clemson's going to be 40-point favorites Thursday night.
That's great. I'm glad in our college football league that you got me into, I got me some Trevor Lawrence there.
Yeah, and guess what? I got the Gators. They sacked Miami 10 times, the Gators D. I check in with John Laub. None of the games count last week. They all start this week. Oh, thanks. Great. I guess I'm not a good rule reader.
Literally the best news I've heard all day. Literally.
Thank you so much.
Your pain is my joy, and I appreciate that. Let's talk. You've got a couple of wins totals for college that you actually want to revisit. You want to go back and plant your flag here. The first one, I'm with you 100%. The second one, I'm scratching my head a little bit. So explain, and let's start with Georgia Tech.
Yeah, so Georgia Tech, they have a new head coach this year. Jeff Collins is the new head coach. Paul Johnson was the coach there. And Georgia Tech, for most people who know this, who watch college football, they essentially don't throw the ball. They have that triple option going where the quarterback has it. He fakes it to one running back. He goes to the other one. The next time he fakes it to that running back. He goes to the other one. The third time he fakes it, and he runs himself. And this is all that Georgia Tech did. And it was very successful for a long period of time. But as college football evolved and the players got faster, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that offense is a little bit antiquated. Now, you could get away with it with Army, and you can get away with it at Air Force and Navy, and again in the military academies. They're not going to recruit, Howard, those high end, really top guys, and so they have to make the best of what they had. So this is like the end of an era, so to speak. Nebraska, way back when, used to do a lot of running out of the wishbone. Now it was Georgia Tech was just one of those teams that ran that triple option. It is over. So I would ask you this, Howard, if you decide to just completely turn over your coaching staff and you have to take over that team the next year and just say, oh, we're not doing that anymore. How do you think that team is gonna fare? They have no quarterback, a couple of decent receivers. Their defense isn't good. So they don't ever say a college team is rebuilding, but this is a rebuilding year for Georgia Tech. So I looked at their schedule. They do play the Citadel, so give them the W. They'll beat the Citadel. They'll win that game. They may not win another one. So I'm going to go under 4 wins for Georgia Tech. It's really sad, and for the kids there, they're going to have to endure a tough one. It's not their fault, but what are you supposed to do? I mean, all of a sudden, just completely change your offense in 3 months? Remember, this isn't the NFL where you got all these OTAs and these kids go to school. Hypothetically, they go to school and they're in class. And
oh yeah, they're in class. They're seriously, they're hanging out in the library the entire time.
So I'm adding this one. I'm adding this one because again, this is the last week for college totals that we can talk about it because after this week it's irrelevant. You'll have to get it. So I'm going to go under on Georgia Tech, under 4 wins.
Under 4 wins? And I'm with you on that one there. As far as the plot line goes, you were somewhere in between Scott Bakula in Necessary Roughness and Rick Moranis coaching the Little Giants.
Thank you for those references.
Kind of right where we were. All right, so I'm with you on the Georgia Tech under 4 wins here. The other one you've got now, talk to me here. Army over 9.5. What does the schedule look like here for Army? Now, you think they're going to get these wins? Now,
remember, I know this is really jogging the memory here, but the last time we talked about Army, Howard, was before we did the bowls. I don't know if you remember this. Before we did any of the bowls,
remember it.
I said Army is the best bet of all the bowl games. 100 and what they won like 50-3 or something like that. And the reason why was all of the players on Houston were like suspended going into the game, and Ed Oliver and all of these players weren't playing. And the line went from 3 to 6 to 7. It didn't matter, and it was such a juicy win for us. It was maybe one of our best wins in all of college last year because we told you even before the college season, the bowl season started, this was the best pick. And it came in, so that was good. But that really had no bearing on this. I just thought I'd bring it up. Army's over 9.5 at minus 140. So they won 9 games in a row to end the season last year. Their only losses were against Duke on the road and Oklahoma on the road. That's pretty impressive. 13 games they play this season. I see only 2 losses, which would be a 10-2 record. Look, they play at Michigan. They're probably not going to win that game. I would say 85-90% chance they don't win that game, but I guess you never know. They also play at Hawaii, and that could be a loss too. Although, look, Hawaii won their big game in game 1. You never know what can happen when you have to play an academy, but beyond that, I doubt it. Hawaii was number 2 in the country last year, third down conversions, number 2 in the country. And considering first down run, second down run, you still got to get 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. They were still doing it. So they also led the nation in time of possession. That's not a huge surprise because you're running the ball every single time, so you're not going to throw. But their defense may be a little bit shallow. They bring back a number of key starters. I am going to go over Army 9.5 wins. I think this is going to be one of their best wins best seasons in a long time. And that schedule is just soft, man. Now they're going to have to beat Navy. They're going to have to beat Air Force. They're going to have to beat the academies. But beyond that, the only teams that are tough on the schedule at Michigan and Hawaii. That's it. And if they lose those 2, they still get to 10 wins. So I'm going to go over 9.5.
All right. Okay. Listen, Army was good to us last year, no doubt about it. I honestly, the best part about betting on the Armed Forces games that you ever told me was that opposing coaches don't run up the score.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So if the spread's too big, take the academies. So
yeah,
I'm totally fine
and
with
the other
that.
team that doesn't do that is Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They don't do it.
Good for them.
They just, some schools, they do it differently. Some teams don't care. And some teams stop, and the other things too is that when you play the academies in general, teams do not run it up. So that's more for a covering thing than it is for a winning thing. But let's say for it, and as an example that you bring up is fair. Let's say they played Michigan at Michigan, and the score in the second quarter is 33-7. the score may end up being 40-14 because they just kind of shut it down at that point. They don't want to embarrass Army. They don't want to embarrass Air Force. And that's just a good little tidbit to know, especially for those really big lines. And that happened. It played out last year, right? In one of the games. I think we took Navy plus like 20.5 against San Diego State. We ended up right, and they covered. They
no, it was Navy against Notre Dame. It was Navy against Notre Dame. Yep, 100%.
And Notre Dame crushed them. I remember we were texting. We're like, "Oh, this is the worst pick of all time." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. It was terrible. I don't know what I was thinking." And then Notre Dame just stopped, right? Like they just stopped, and then they covered. They covered. I think they covered by like a point, something like that. So so Friday night we'll be back here and we'll give our final picks, and then next Tuesday we'll come on and we'll talk about our leans for the Golden Nugget contest. We have 7 picks there. Our leans for the Super Contest, and then 1 week from Friday we make our first Super Contest picks.
This is it. So enjoy, guys. We'll be back on Friday night, and enjoy your Labor Day weekend. All business when we return next Tuesday, as well as if we're not all business right now. But that's going to do it. Big thanks to our producer, Matt Sells. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. Thanks for tuning in to the Wager Alarm live stream, and we'll catch you next time.